Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Miller here again for your 7.3 Algebra Notes, Special Products of Polynomials here. So here we're going to use the square of binomial pattern, and then we're going to use the sum and difference pattern also. So we're going to start out here with looking at how do you expand here through multiplication an x plus 4 with all the quantities squared. Huge misconception here. Do not just apply the square to both parts. You can only do that when you have a multiplication here. So a lot of students want to go, oh, this is become x squared and a 4 squared and we're all done. Remember, this is the same as, and again, I'm going to just write a little example up here. If you have whatever, x squared up here, what does that mean? X squared means we have x multiplied by x. So we have this whole inside part multiplied by its inside part. So what you actually have is x plus 4 multiplied by an x plus 4. Oops, make sure I turn that into a 4. And that's where people go screwy. Now we got to use our FOIL method or our box method. Again, I'll switch it up here a little bit. I'll do both methods, but I like FOIL. So my first terms, and again, I like to draw FOIL out. So my first terms are x squared. Inside terms is what I usually do next. So plus 4x. Outside terms, 4 times x is another positive 4x. And then our last terms, 4 times 4, and that's going to be a positive 16. So cleaning it up, our answer is x squared plus 8x plus 16. Again, write it out twice. 2x plus 1 multiplied by 2x plus 1. Because you have to use the FOIL method or the box method here. I'm going to use FOIL again, and I'll use the box on the last one. Just again, I find FOIL, I already have it written down. Don't need to change it again for it. So here, first terms. So again, I like to draw my first terms multiplied. 2 times 2 is 4. X times x is x squared. Again, I have all positive signs again here. So again, inside is going to be a positive 2x. Outside is another positive 2x. And then our last ones are positive 1. And clean it up. 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. Box method now. So again, I'll write it up here. So this is going to be y minus 7, all that multiplied by y minus 7. So if I'm doing my box method, we start with our box. Put one of them on top, y, draw my line in. There's my minus 7. Y, draw my line in, minus 7. Y times y is squared. Y times a negative 7 is a minus 7y. Minus 7 times y is a minus 7y, and minus 7 times minus 7 is a positive 49. And cleaning that up, we have 1y squared. That is going to be a negative 14y, and then we have a positive 49. So, in a moment here, with the rest of our notes, they're going to ask us to look for a pattern. So what do we notice here? So as we're looking along, there is a pattern that is established here, and it reoccurs no matter if we're adding or if we're subtracting, that pattern reoccurs. So here I started out with x plus 4, that quantity squared, and my final answer was x squared plus 8x plus 16. Here we had a 2x plus 1, quantity squared, and we got 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. And here, y minus 7, that quantity squared, we get y squared, a minus 14y, and 49. So what do you notice about the first term? Hopefully you notice this. It is the first term of the expression. It is squared. So how do I get to this first term here of my answer? We take the first term of our binomial and just square it. And that gets us that each time. Even when you have a coefficient in there, you square both of them. So 2 squared is 4, x squared is x squared. A y, y squared. What do we notice about the last term? It is the last term squared in the binomial. So we have a 4. How do I get the last answer? We take that 4 and we square it. There it is. Take that 1 and square it. There it is. Take the minus 7 and square it, and it becomes positive 49. And then, what about this middle term of our answer? How can we get that? You can simply get that, ladies and gentlemen, by adding the two terms together from the original expression. So if I add these two together, that becomes 4x. So combine them. That's what I meant by adding them together. So combine them. And actually, maybe I should use multiplication instead of adding. So I'm going to change this. Multiply the two terms. So we'll turn that into an x for multiply. I'll put multiply the two terms. Multiply the two terms together, so 4 times x. Then we turn around and we multiply by 2. So 4x times 2 is going to be 8x. This becomes 2x. 2x times 2 is 4x. This is becoming a minus 7y when we multiply them together, times 2, minus 14y. So we'll use the pattern here without having to expand it using FOIL or box. Becoming very easy. So here, square it. So this is what you're doing, your pattern. 3 squared and an x squared. We're squaring both of those, so that gets us 9x squared. Now I have to do my inside terms, and again, we have here 3x multiplied by 4, and that's going to give us 12x. Then we need to multiply that by 2, so that's going to be 24x. So it's a positive 24x. And finally, take the last part and square it. What is 4 squared? 4 squared is a positive 16. So really the only work you really kind of need to show me is this inside for your pattern. So again, square both parts, 4a squared. Multiply them together, so it's going to be a minus 14a. Don't forget we need to multiply it by 2, so that's going to be a minus 28a, minus 28a. And then a negative 7 times a negative 7 is a positive 49. And we have our answer. Flip over to the back side. And we're going to investigate the other pattern. So the other pattern happens to do with when we have a sum and a difference of the binomial. So the binomial is exactly the same, except for one is a sum of them, terms, and the other one is the subtraction of those terms. And we will establish a pattern here as well. So, jump here first. And then we actually go up and do these in a moment. So it says, look at the binomial above. How is each binomial similar? How are they different? So we kind of just described that. The binomials, how are they similar? They have the same values. So same values. As an example, I have a 2x value, I had a 2x value. I have a 3, a 3. So same values / numbers in each. How are they different? One is positive, and the other is negative. So one binomial positive, the other binomial negative sign. Now we can go ahead and in these three here, multiply the binomials, showing your work. So again, FOIL, box. If you want to use horizontal, which is that distributive property, you can do that also, but we tend to come back to these. Again, I like FOIL, so that's how I'm going to do them. So we'll do these together here. So FOIL, first times first, is going to be 4x squared. Inside is a positive 6x, because there's 3 times 2, and bring the x along. Outside is going to be a minus 6x, because that is a negative sign, and 3 times 2 is 6, and bring the x along. And then the last term is a negative, and 3 times 3 is 9. Clean it up. 4x squared. Ooh, our x's disappear, and we have minus 9. All right, interesting. Continue. First, 3 times 3 is 9. X times x is x squared. Inside is going to be a positive 12x. Outside is a minus 12x and minus 16. Clean it up. 9x squared. Middle term disappears again. Minus 16. I'm going to say out on a limb here, my middle term is going to disappear again here. So first one, 5x times 5x is 25x squared. Inside is a positive 5x. Outside is that minus 5x. And last is a negative 1. And sure enough, 25x squared, inside term, that middle term disappears, and we have minus 1. So, first question was the answer for each problem a binomial answer or a trinomial answer? And it was a binomial. Binomial means we have 2 terms. Where over here, on our other side, when you multiplied these binomials together here, we got a trinomial answer for that one. 7, what happened, or explain what happened to the middle term in each problem and why it happened. Middle term is gone, so we eliminated it, so it canceled out. So canceled out. That was the middle term. So middle term canceled out. And why did that happen? Well, when we looked up here, we got a positive and a negative x. So it cancels out. So we got positive x and a negative x. That canceled out. 8, look at the coefficient of the first term in each answer. What is very special about these numbers? So we're looking at the coefficient in the first term of each answer. So coefficient is the 4. It is just that 2, and it was squared. So when I look at that, we just take the first coefficient that we see and we could square that. Same happens here. 3 and squared. Same thing. 5, we get the 25. So if we look at the first coefficient in the answer there, what is very special about these numbers? They're the perfect squares. And that should say squares, not squared. So perfect squares. S. So when we look at our very first term, no matter which one it is of the binomials up here, oops, I slide it down. All you need to do is take that binomial, whatever the first term is of the binomials, and square it. Look at the coefficient of the last term. That could be in front of a variable also. So again, we're kind of simple here. We did not put any, so sometimes you might see like a 2x here and a 3y there. So again, you can have variables in this last term also, ladies and gentlemen. It's just that we've filled it with a number there. So what do we notice about that? Again, it is that perfect square. So if I look at the last terms here for my problem of the binomials that we're multiplying together, all we need to do is take one of them and square it and make sure that that is a negative sign. So I guess being a little cautious, we'll say we'll multiply it. So even though it is a perfect square, we do get the 9. The sign has to be negative. So again, watch that. I'm going to put a little asterisk here. It will have a negative sign. So even though it is a perfect square, you are going to have a negative sign there. So you do have to pay attention to your signs. So thinking about our pattern makes these a little easier. Run into the first one, square it. And then multiply the last two together. And when you do that, when you multiply the last two together, you will get that sign correctly. So a positive and a negative is a negative, and 10 times 10, or 10 squared, is 100. Done. Next one, square it. So that becomes 4x squared. And then, again, it's always a negative sign. And then 1 squared is still just 1. Done. And then here we go. We gave you an example with a y in there. So again, take the first term, square it. So that's an x squared. And then take the last term. Again, remember it is negative. It will always be negative. Take the last term there and square it. So 3 squared is 9, and y squared is y squared. Done. Remember, this only works, ladies and gentlemen, when your terms are exactly the same in both binomials, when one is a positive separating the terms and one is a negative separating the terms. Otherwise, you got to go back to foiling it out, distributing it using the box method. So, as always, if you have any questions, please let us know.